We are now live. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the Red Pill Diaries. I have my colleague in the booth. I'm about to bring him up. There was no intro on purpose because I know Larry is a busy man, and I wanted to just get as many issues, many things, many topics addressed before we run out of the little time that we have. So let me bring my colleague on. How's it going, Larry?
Hey, brother. Good to see you. Look, you can always do the intro. It's all right. That's not a bother.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Larry, let's get right into it. The smoke is clearing now. The election is over. Trump won definitively, and it seems like he's staffing his administration with anti-Iran hawks. And I noticed that right before the election, right during the election, he came out of the blue and said that Iranians were trying to assassinate him. And then right before he became the presidential elected presidential candidate, the intelligence agencies come out and say that they have caught these three people that allegedly tried to assassinate Trump. Is this something that they are trying to put pressure on Iran, and or is this the deep state trying to position the U.S. government to go after Iran for what it's doing in the Middle East, trying to liberate occupied territories and stuff?
Well, simple answers. It's all lies. Okay. So let's start about the claim that Iran's trying to assassinate Trump. Well, where does that come from? The FBI claims that they interviewed, I understand what I'm saying, they interviewed a guy via phone, because he's not in the United States. And who is this guy? Well, he was born in Afghanistan, came to the United States, did 14 years in a U.S. prison for robbery, I believe. And then somehow made his way to Iran and became recruited by Iran's intelligence organization to go back and kill Donald Trump, even though the guy has no access whatsoever to Donald Trump. And they were putting him in jail. They indicted him, and he's not going to be prosecuted because he's not coming back to the States. But he reportedly recruited two characters, one like Carlos Riviera, and some other dude. I think one Latino, one black, from Brooklyn, and they were supposed to go kill somebody else. I mean, it's ludicrous, and this was conveniently put out by the FBI, more or less to show Trump, hey, we're not against you, even though they've been doing everything possible under the sun to try to indict him. So that's nonsense. It is, the majority of Americans believe wrongly that Iran is the major threat. We got to stop Iran. They keep telling us that. Got to stop Iran. Got to stop Iran. And they're like, why? Oh, Iran's a major sponsor of terrorism. It's the world's biggest sponsor of terrorism. No, it's not. Not by any stretch. Actually, the biggest terrorist in the world right now, in terms of, if you're measuring terrorism in terms of people, civilians killed, because terrorism, simply defined, is the killing of civilians for political purposes. And who's doing that? Most of that killing? It's called Israel. The state of Israel, in my view, is a terrorist state. And pure and simple. And that definition I just gave you, that definition was offered up by Bibi Netanyahu 40 years ago on a TV show with William F. Buckley. So, we'll hoist him on his own petard, so to speak. But this obsession with, we got to get regime change in Iran, ain't going to happen. And in fact, the more the United States tries to subvert Iran, the more it subverts itself, in my view. We have been on this changing government nonsense for the last 75 years, since the start of the CIA in 1948. And it needs to come to an end. It has not brought the world peace. It hasn't brought the world prosperity. It's brought death and destruction across the world. And we really need to stop. We're like a serial rapist, candidly.
Well, Larry, why do you think Trump went along with that and publicly stated it without any backing, just hearsay, and on top of that, followed it up with the staffing of hawks that are adamantly against Iran and that want war with Iran?
Yeah, plays the victim and gets him sympathy. That's why I did it. I must say I am very disappointed in a number of these picks that he's announced. Trump used to be known for having a high-class brand. Trump golf clubs, and he was focused upon branding his name as something associated with high quality and incredible competence. But he seems he's tarnishing that by selecting people like Pete Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense. Hegseth's just not qualified for that job, not at all. I mean, he's intellectually not equipped to handle it, and just is, so superficial in his understandings. And so, I think he may very well not get confirmed, and that'll be a black eye for Trump. Selecting Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Again, Gaetz is just too compromised a figure in my view. He's been a Trump loyalist, that's true, but Trump's got some real work to do at DOJ to clean it out, and he needs to have somebody who's not being attacked all the time for being all these allegations that exist against Gaetz, which I believe are not true. But that's not the point. The point is they're going to use that as a distraction. So instead of Gaetz focusing on cleaning out the Department of Justice, he's going to be busy defending himself. I think it's embarrassing. And then the worldview that's reflected by, and it's not just the Trump people, because they're really reflecting a much broader view in Washington, still held by the neoconservatives. That if we just change the regime in Iran, everything will be hunky dory, and literally ignore the rights of the Palestinian people. There are no Palestinians, as many of these people believe. They just close their eyes and pretend that those living, breathing human beings don't exist anymore. And, people like Mike Huckabee, who was appointed to be Israel's ambassador, insist there's no such thing as Palestine. There's Judea and Samaria. He's caught up in this Old Testament crap, which, I think the more anybody that objectively sits down and reads the Old Testament, at least the first 5 books of the Torah, come away with saying, if that's God, I don't want any part of him. He's a sadist. He celebrates murder. It's disgusting. And yet it's out of that book that was written by the Jews at the time under the claim, hey, God gave this to us. And you know what? How about that? God says we're special. We're better than you. We get things that you don't get. We get to kill you. Oh, gee, yeah. So, it's like if we had the Rashid Muhammad book, you say, hey, I'm number 1. How about that? Sorry, it's my pet peeve.
I get you. I understand. Larry, so since we're on this issue, just there were reports earlier this morning that Syria bombed Homs, I mean, Israel bombed Syria in Damascus and in Homs. Um,
Yeah,
they bombed close to the Russian military base a few days ago, and Russia told them they better watch it, because this would, if they make a mistake, it will be detrimental to not only Syria, but it would be highly detrimental to Israel itself if the mistake was made. Why is Israel going? Well, you and I know, but why is Israel going on this rampage, provoking and stoking tensions all across the Middle East?
they're a bully. They're just they believe that they are entitled by God to do this, and they've gotten away with it in the past. Nobody's punched them in the nose. You know how you deal with a bully. The bully that's going around picking on weaker people and getting away with it. But then, someday comes up against somebody who's strong or stronger than they are and knocks them, flat on the rear end. That's what it's going to take. Someone's going to have to knock Israel out. And it will only then would the Israelis start to sit down and do some self-reflection and to realize, hey, we can't continue to behave like this. What we're doing is evil. The murder. Let's say that the Israeli version of October 7th is correct. It's not. It's a complete lie.
Yeah.
Hamas did not execute, behead 40 babies. That's a lie. They didn't rape the women. That's a lie. They did attack military bases. They did attack the militias in these kibbutzim, and they did take hostages. The taking of hostages is constitutes terrorism. Doesn't matter how justified your particular cause is. But let's just say that the Israeli explanation of that is true. They killed 1,200. They suffered 1,200 casualties. Actually, 1,159 was the revised figure. They've now killed close to 50,000 people in Gaza, West Bank, and Lebanon and Syria. 50,000. There's no justification for that. None whatsoever. And they always say, oh, we're fighting terrorism. Yeah, they are engaged in terrorism to allegedly to defeat something that has really hardly inflicted any casualties on Israel. According to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, the Palestinian terrorist attacks that are listed over a 24-year period, fewer than 1,600 Israelis were killed over a 24-year period. I think in 1 year that's the murder rate in Chicago. So,
yeah, you make a good point that it's more dangerous to walk on the streets of Chicago or Baltimore than it is to be over there. But Larry, I noticed that when Israel started bombing Syria and Lebanon, the United States, the day before that, and it seems like it's right, it happens all the time like this. The day before that, the United States bombed Syria, and they were quoted as saying they were bombing Iranian-backed militias, but the Syrian Arab Republic said that the United States bombed Syrian soldiers and injured dozens of them and killed a few. And they justified this as fighting terrorism. How can you fight terrorism if you're illegally in a country? You have no UN mandate, and you have no invite from the legitimate Syrian authorities. So if you're there illegally, has the right to eject you by any means necessary.
yeah.
Why doesn't the Western press put it in those terms?
Well, because they're owned. They're under a corporate control that is entirely facilitating, enabling the U.S. Breaking of international law. You know, the United States gives a lot of lip service to this international rules-based order. But what happens is we're the biggest violators of those international rules, as you correctly note in Syria. And we went into Syria in the first place to weaken to Iran. This is a way we sought to attack Iran. We're still, we're upset that the Iranians took our embassy back in 1979 or 1980, excuse me, without any awareness or taking any responsibility for the fact that we had overthrown a democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953. And then so we meddle in a country, overthrow their government, and then people eventually push back, and then we go, God, why are they mad at me? It's like we're clueless. And so here we started this war in Syria to overthrow the Syrian government. And to that end, we started funding, arming, and in some cases training radical Islamic groups, radical Sunni groups. The very ones that are sort of, let's call them distant relatives of the Al-Qaeda folks who attacked us on 9/11. And so here's the United States is actually sponsoring terrorism. When you arm and equip and train people that go out and attack civilians for political reasons, that makes you a facilitator, supporter of terrorism. The United States has been doing the same. It started really under Obama, I think in 2012, when they finally removed the Mujahideen al-Khalq, a terrorist organization who had attacked Americans before, but was primarily attacking the Iranian mullahs. We started funding them, took them off the terrorism list and started funding them and helping them, encouraging them to carry out attacks in Iran. So it's ridiculous.
This Phobos Moon, he says, people looking at the Middle East as the epicenter, but I worry it might be Sudan and the Sahel that kicks off World War III. Ukraine, USA, and France are playing crazy games with terrorists in Sahel. It's crazy. When I talk about the Middle East, I often talk about the MENA region, that is the Middle East and North African region, because if a war breaks out, it's going to go regional. Go ahead, Larry. Give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I disagree. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but nobody cares. It's just Russia has recently gone in, I think, to Niger, or it was either Niger or Mali, and agreed to work with them in building a nuclear power plant and helping them get some advanced technology. But yeah, there are, there's still the radical Islamists working there on the Sunni side, but it's really not a critical region for the world. It's out of the way. For the people that live there, yeah, it's important. But this is, even if the two, the U.S. and Russia got into a clash there, nobody'd hardly notice.
Nick Hall says the terrorists are USA, as Larry well knows. And then he says, and Larry, I'll let you take this. He says his framing of the problem to Jewish and not Zionist has been noted for a while. Larry, you can take that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think there's a difference between Judaism and Zionism. Not all Jews accept the concept of Zionism, that they are automatically entitled to this land and that they claim as Israel. And you've got a lot of, prominent Jews that have been speaking out against what the Zionists are doing. People like Jeffrey Sachs and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate, Norm Finkelstein, Ilan Pape. It's not an isolated group. but the Zionists really represent, in my view, a pernicious threat, and frankly need to be eliminated.
Since we're on this Moscow thing, which I wanted to transition to real quick, I wanted to talk about Africa a little bit, but we've gotten a little bit of that in. And I want to, on another show, I wanted us to tackle more what's going on in Northern Africa and stuff. But I wanted to ask you your opinion on this. I actually wanted to ask you this at the beginning, but I wanted to work our way up. So this article comes out in RT, and it's titled "Moscow Vows Devastating Response If Kyiv Strikes Deep into Russia." And this is Maria Zakharia, and it says, if NATO lifts restrictions on weapons provided to Ukraine, it will be directly involved in the conflict. Maria Zakharova has said.
Zakharova.
Okay, Zakharova. Western nations continue to play with fire, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova told a news briefing on Wednesday. She was commenting on reported attempts by London and Paris to convince Washington to allow Kyiv to fire Western-supplied weapons deep into Russia. Last week, the Telegraph reported that the UK and France were seeking U.S. permission to greenlight strikes involving Storm Shadow and Scalp cruise missiles before President-elect Donald Trump's January inauguration. And this is the part right here that I was trying to get to. And this is a quote. If the Kiev regime gets permission for the aforementioned strikes, we will treat it as NATO de facto entering a direct conflict with Russia. A response to the use of Western long-range weapons against the territory of our nation would be imminent and devastating. What is your take on that?
I believe what they say. They're not talking smack. They're making a very simple declaration. If the United Kingdom and Germany or France starts providing, again, it's like facilitating murder. If you go buy a gun and give somebody a gun, a loaded gun, and then say, hey, go kill that person, and they go out and kill that person, well, who are the police going to come after? Just the one who pulled the trigger, or the one who made that possible? And that's all Israel. That's all the Russians are saying here. Hey, you facilitated. You're not only an accessory to murder. You facilitated it. You enabled it, and you're going to be punished. And so, if they think they can strike into Moscow and not get struck in London or Paris or Berlin, they're going to learn the hard way. There's that acronym on the internet, FAFO.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, F around, find out. Well, okay. I mean, I've never seen such a collection of crazies in senior government positions that just believe fantastical stuff. And then talk about it as, oh yeah, it's real. And, Putin's an authoritarian. This coming from people who are locking up protesters. Mm-hmm. They need to look in the damn mirror.
Are they that out of touch with reality, Larry?
Yes.
And are they that desperate because they're losing in Ukraine that bad? Are they that desperate to put us on the precipice to World War III?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it's driven by money. Europe, if when Ukraine goes down, Europe was counting on basically exploiting Ukraine's resources for its own benefit. If Ukraine goes down, Europe is screwed. That's like they were backing. They're putting all their money on this one horse, and now the horse winds up not only with a broken leg, but they shoot it in the head and put it in the glue factory. So all that money they invested there is gone. That's one of the reasons the Europeans are just making such a fuss trying to hang on. It's really sick.
And this is this is a 13-second clip. I want you to listen to this right here. This is from the NATO military chief. This is what
I'm
he has to
absolutely
say.
sure if the Russians did not have nuclear weapons, we would have been in Ukraine, kicking them out. We would have. But they have nuclear weapons, so it's not the same as in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
So-
you know what? If LeBron James was born white and a midget, he wouldn't be in the NBA. I mean, what's wrong? Again, this is the brain power of this clown. You know, well, if they didn't have nuclear weapons, yeah, and if frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass when they jump. Okay. I mean, this condition, playing this if game, trying to change reality. You know, it was like, well, if I weren't so ugly, I'd have some girlfriends. Well, if you were rich, it wouldn't matter if you were ugly. You'd have girlfriends.
Yeah. And it seems like they're so detached from reality because this is the fourth NATO trained, armed, and financed version of the Ukrainian military that Russia is destroying. So if NATO had intervened, nuclear weapons or not, they would have suffered a similar fate as what we're watching. Because prior to this, Ukraine was said to be the most highly skilled and armed forces in Europe, and Russia has destroyed them 3 times, going on the 4 times over. So, but also with this, doesn't that give nations like Iran the impetus to get a nuclear weapon?
Yes.
After hearing something like that?
Yeah. No, candidly, if I was the Iranians, I would have gone ahead and developed it. They got the capability. You know, they're not going to negotiate their way out of this. The West is obsessed with destroying Iran and destroying Russia and destroying China. The West is not looking to live in peace with these countries. We want to subjugate them, dominate them, take them over, break them up. I mean, wake up, people. That's what's going on. We've got really bad people in the West operating for really bad motives, and the way they justify it is they create the meme that China and Russia pose threats to the world. This 2 countries that between them have maybe, I think Russia's got 19 military bases outside of Russia, and they're most of those are along in countries on its border, like in Belarus, Kazakhstan. China has 1 in Ethiopia, I believe.
Djibouti.
Is it Djibouti?
Yeah.
And then the United States has over 700, 750, 751. Opened a new one in Poland yesterday. Who poses the world threat? Who's meddling in the affairs of other countries? You know, and we keep saying it, we're completely clueless. You know, if there's a God, there's going to be a karma bill to pay, is all I can say. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be pretty for the United States, because the United States it's done some good in the world, but I'm not sure the good we've done matches up with all the evil that we've inflicted in terms of killing people.
Well, Larry, how can you talk about these people who are insane and who are pushing for war because of money and because of power? Do they take the time and think that, okay, America is not the America of 45 years ago, and her economy is in a tailspin, a downward tailspin, and it's about to collapse? Wouldn't it be better to not antagonize those nations that are on the ascendancy while you're declining? I mean, do they think about that? Because if you don't antagonize them, maybe they catch you in your fall and help you. But instead, these people keep antagonizing, provoking, and building up animosity all around the world.
Yeah, yeah. No, part of that requires some humility. The United States has none, and some self-awareness. We were lacking on that front too. No, we've convinced ourselves that we're the exceptional nation, that we're the greatest nation in the world, and that nobody's better, and that we do everything the best, and nobody has anything to teach us. That's Israel's attitude too. That they're the best military, that you can't tell, they know all about fighting terror. You can't tell them anything. So,
well, that's the downfall of nations, Larry. If you look at empires, if you look at nations that were the cream of the crop throughout history, imperial hubris and arrogance and a lack of self-reflection has been the main driver in its downfall.
yes, yeah, and we're headed down that same path. Europe is on that path too. These were colonial empires that dominated the world for more than 100 years. But now they're like a toothless dog. Still lots of growling and barking, but they have no bite. All they are is an annoyance, a nuisance. Like I said, we're going to keep. We feel that war is the only way we can win. Wow. And that's why we're going to continue down this path. And so that instead of negotiating with Iran, we continue to demonize Iran.
Do you see us at, two more questions, and I'll let you go. Do you see us at war with Iran pretty soon? Because Israel is not going to stop antagonizing Iran, and Iran is going to be forced to respond. And I answer that, and then I'll ask you the last question.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it could very well be within the next 4 to 5 weeks. I think it could happen before Trump is installed in office.
So now that leads to the last question. If this war takes place, wouldn't this mean the end of America as the global superpower, the global hegemon? Because Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will attack the bases. That means 25 to 30% of the oil and gas that is transited through that area is shut down. That means the global economy goes into a tailspin. That means America's economy, which is already in dire straits, collapses. Is this the end of the American empire?
Well, we're already there, man. And why I say that is, this war in Ukraine is a proxy war, not by NATO, by the United States against Russia. And we've lost it. And we poured in all sorts of military equipment, all sorts of financial assistance, training, intelligence, overhead imagery, everything they could want. Wasn't enough. We announced with great fanfare last December, Operation Prosperity Guardian. And Lloyd Austin, boy, we're going to open that Red Sea, and we're going to teach those Houthis. And what happened? We haven't been able to reopen the Red Sea, and we've had to take our aircraft carrier out of the Red Sea. And, I know some of the Zionist crazies in this country will tell you, oh, that's because Biden he went soft on the Houthis. Oh, nonsense. It's just sheer utter nonsense. No, we tried to use our military might and found out there are limits to our power. And the biggest evidence of that, 18 years in Afghanistan. And what did we get? The old song, another day older and deeper in debt. That's what we got.
So in other words, we're living in the fumes of American empire. This is it for the American empire.
We're living amidst the decline. It's like dead man walking.
Woo. That's a hard one there, Larry. A dead man walking. Larry, thank you, man, for giving me your time today again. I appreciate it, man. I hit you up and you hit me right back. Man, I'll give you the time. I appreciate that, Larry.
Anytime. I always appreciate your respect and your courtesy. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Be blessed and be safe. I'll send you the video.
All righty. Appreciate it. Later. Bye.
Everybody. All right, later. Everybody, listen. Hit the like button. First of all, hit the like button. Let me see. I wanted to tell you we'll have Brian Berletic on next week. I believe it's either Wednesday in the evening time or Thursday. So, but we're gonna have shows all in between, and we'll have more guests coming up. We got Gregory Manarino next week coming up also. So you guys got to join us on our show. I'm gonna try to, if I can get back in time, we're gonna try to do a channel member and premium member stream tonight. If not, it will be tomorrow for sure. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth. I want to say this, and I always leave with this: do right by others, not because there's something in it for you, not because other people are watching, not because you'll get credit for it. Do right by others because it's the right thing to do. And remember, when nobody else is watching, when no other people's eyes are on you, God Almighty eyes are always stayed on you. So on that note, I'm going to say I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. I love you all if you love truth. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all for joining me. We're out of here. Peace.